Blam! Ork ramship Gorgrinder slips out of the Immaterium at warp speed, just inside of the Geller field of Mechanicus Ark ship, the Titan's Echo, slamming into it, embedding itself deep into the ship's cargo bay, rotating blades and drills piercing the hull, digging even deeper. The front opens to a dimly lit corridor, echoing with the sounds of metal grinding and the low hum of engines straining against the void. Flickering lights cast jagged shadows, revealing the bulk of Ork boss Frusta, a hulking figure clad in scavenged armor adorned with trophies from countless battles, his green skin glistening under the sporadic illumination and his tusks jutting out like sharpened spears as he stomped through the ship, his eyes darting around, always seeking something shiny or dangerous. Looking back at his boys, "Shut your yarp," Frusta growled, his voice gravelly and commanding. "We got a job to do. The Hoomies are hoarding something good on this ship, and I ain't leaving without it." Up ahead, the heavy steel door of the cargo bay loomed. Frusta's heart raced with anticipation. He could almost smell the sweet scent of plunder. "Get ready," he barked, brandishing his power claw with a cackle of energy. "Ready, boss, ready," Wog Thrust chirped, bouncing on his feet. He flicked a switch on his device, causing it to emit a series of crackles and pops like fireworks in a storm. "Let's see what's behind this door." With a deafening clang, Frusta slammed his shoulder against the door, which flew open with a loud whoosh. The sight before them was a treasure trove of human technology, boxes piled high with glowing consoles and strange machines humming with energy. "Wah!" Frusta bellowed, the battle cry echoing through the bay. "This is what I'm talking about. Look, boss, look," Wagthrust squealed, pointing at two huge drop pods containing Warlord-class Titans. The Orks began ripping away at the pod, trying to get to the Titans inside. Frusta scanned the room, his instincts screaming danger. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and a sharp alarm blared through the bay. Wheel, wheel, wheel! Red lights flashing, bathing the room in crimson glow. "Boss, we in trouble," Wagthrust squeaked, his voice rising in pitch. "They knows we're here." "Too late now," Frusta growled, his hands flexing the power claw. "We takes those and smash our way out." He stood before the massive pods housing the Titans, a war machine revered and feared in equal measure. The boys rushed to obey, the low rumble of the Titans' engines reverberating through the chamber, a sound that promised destruction. The pod's metallic surface shivered as the Titan's machine spirit awakes from its long slumber. The Titan, a towering figure of war, a relic of ancient technology, its machine spirit long dormant, but the threat of the Orks, a relentless tide of green-skinned savagery, demanded a response. The pod hissed open with a loud hiss, and the Titan stepped forth, its immense bulk casting a shadow over the Orks. Wah! The Orks outside roared, their guttural laughter echoing through the walls as they surged forward, climbing over one another to reach the prize they had been so desperate to capture. With a heavy thud, the Titan's foot slammed down on the nearest Orks, squashing them into the deck with a sickening splat. Green ichor sprayed across the floor as the Titan took its first steps into battle. A mechanical beast awakened to fulfill its purpose, the of las fire echoing around them, incinerating Orks with brilliant flashes of light. The sheer mass of green bodies swarming the Titan, their crude weaponry firing wildly. The Orks clawed at the Titan's armor, their shooters puncturing vital components. The Titan's massive arms swung, sweeping Orks off with brutal efficiency. With each movement, the deck quaked, resonating with the fury of battle. "Get off me, you filthy Xenos!" one of the Titan's servers shouted, its voice a mechanical rasp as it fired its own weaponry. The thump, thump, thump of the autocannon, sending Orks flying in all directions. But the Orks kept coming, relentless in their assault. The Titan systems whirled to life with a series of whirls and bzzz. It lunged forward, slamming its weight into the wall, crushing dozens of Orks under its massive bulk. The ship shuddered, the sound of metal rending the bodies, splattering echoes throughout the chamber. Orks scrambling over the Titan's limbs, their crude machinery and makeshift weaponry glinting in the dim light. The fight raged on. The Titan swings its massive arms, smashing Orks into paste with each swing. But as more climbed aboard, they began to target the vital components. A heavy thunk resonated as an orc swung its makeshift axe at a vital cable, sparks flying as it bit into the machinery. Another orc fired a shooter, the bang reverberating through the air as the bullets struck a critical part of the Titan's arm. The Titan systems began to wail, a high-pitched alarm sound through the chamber. The ship shook violently, and the Titan's quake cannon discharged. With a deafening roar, a blast of blinding light erupted from the Titan's arm, a fragment of a long Sermonatus planet hurling forth with devastating force. The ship trembled under the weight of the unleashed power of the shock puncturing through the thick walls of the Marcanium Ark. Whoosh! The sound was all-consuming, a force that ripped through the air, sucking everything in its path into the void. The ship began to break apart, the hull crackling like a fragile shell. The Titan, still standing proud amidst the carnage, continued to fight against the Orks, but it was a losing battle. Wah! The Orks roared in triumph, their laughter echoing through the chaos as they clung to the Titan, desperately trying to bring it down. The Titan continued its relentless assault, consumed by the madness of battle. With a final bone-shattering crash, the ship's hull began to buckle, the weight of the Orks and the unleashed power drawing everything into the abyss. In the cacophony of destruction, the Titan roared and the Orks howled in victory. The air was thick with the arid scent of burnt metal, space alive with the flickering lights of explosions and the roar of engines. Fruster, a cunning orc captain known for his ruthless tactics, had slipped out the back and back to his ship, grinned at the surveyed the chaos from the deck of the gore grinder, his yellow tusks glinting like daggers as he barked orders to his crew. Oi, you lot! Get ready for the next part! We ain't done yet! Fruster shouted, his voice booming. The orcs around him, a motley crew of brutish figures, scrambling to obey. Their laughter mingled with the grunts of effort. What about the loot, boss? One of the orcs, a brawny fellow named Gritch, asked, wiping sweat from his brow. We ain't seen nothing shiny yet. Shiny? You want shiny? Fruster gleamed with mischief. You'll get shiny soon enough. Just keep your eyes peeled. The gore grinder lurched as the ship was rocked by another explosion, sending a wave of energy that dislodged the orc battle ram. Wah! The orc crew howled, the battle cry echoing through the ship as they struggled to regain control. Fruster clenched his fist, feeling the adrenaline surge within him. Hold steady! He bellowed as the ship swayed dangerously. He could see the form of the Titan looming above them. Suddenly, another explosion rocked the ship, and Fruster's grin flattened as he felt the ship tilt precariously. The Titan slammed down into the gore grinder. What the dog? Fruster looked like he was turning the ship to run, but Gritch's eyes widened. Boss, we can't leave now, not with so much loot to be had. He pointed the drop pod. Look, you think I'm thinking to leave without the loot? Hold on. Fruster shouted, his eyes fixed on the nearby drop pod. He set the gore grinder on a collision course. What you doing, boss? Gritch yelled, panic creeping into his voice. Ramming it, Fruster replied with a manic grin, his heart racing. We take what we can before we go. The ship barreled toward the drop pod. The crew braced themselves. Fruster could feel the tension in the air and the anticipation crackling like static. Now, he roared, slamming the controls forward. The gore grinder collided with the drop pod in a thunderous crash. Metal screeching against metal, the orc crew screamed with a mix of terror and exhilaration. Fruster spotted the gleaming gold button that says, "The Warp" on the control panel, a device that promised salvation or doom. He slammed his fist down, the button activating with a satisfying thunk. The ship shuddered, and the deep hum filled the air as the warp engines roared to life. Wah! The crew cheered, their voices a blend of excitement and fear. They could feel the ship's engines strain as they prepared to dive into the warp. With a blink, the Gore Grinder, the Titan, and the drop pod were gone. Ork warp travel is not precise by any stretch of imagination. So when our ork boys are spit out of the warp into the gravitation field of a planet and proceed to plummet straight into the surface, it is of no surprise. The amalgamation of ork ship, drop pod, and Titan make planetfall hard, creating a crater on the surface, metal bits raining down like a shower of choppas. The night was thick with shadows as the remnants of the fallen craft lay scattered across the landscape, dark metal twisted into grotesque shapes, a stark contrast against the green planet and the brown soil. A low, ominous hum resonates from the wreckage, a sound that sent shivers down the spine of any who dared to listen. From the debris, a slick, chitinous form emerged, the Genestealer patriarch unfurling its limbs with a sickening squelch, its many eyes glinting in the moonlight, scanning the terrain for signs of life. Hunger gnawed at its insides, and its need for a host, a vessel to propagate its dark lineage. After days of prowling the planet, the patriarch stumbled upon a makeshift encampment, the shrieks of feral orks echoing through the night, their laughter a harsh cackle against the silence. "Wog, we smash 'em good!" one ork shouted, swinging a crude, rusted weapon above his head. "More loot for the boys!" another roared, his voice booming like thunder. The patriarch lurked in the shadows, watching the orks bumble around in their crude revelry, their thick green skin glistening under the pale light of the twin moons. It could sense the savage energy radiating from them, an intoxicating mix of brute strength and primal chaos. "Oi, you call that a swing? Pathetic!" an ork jeered, slapping his companion on the back. "You shut up, you geek!" came the retort, punctured by a guttural moan of indignation. The patriarch moved closer. This was the perfect opportunity. It darted forward, a dark blur of claws and teeth. The ork didn't notice until it was too late. "What that?" I cried, eyes wide with confusion. "Get it! Splat it!" another roared, scrambling for his weapon. But the patriarch was swift, its claws rending flesh as it leaped into the fray. The camp erupted into chaos, screams with the sound of crashing bodies and the wet spatter of blood. As the dust settled, the patriarch stood over the fallen, its eyes gleaming as he peered around at the orks, hypnotizing them. Warping the minds of the orks, they perceived him as a four-armed hulking ork, bigger and stronger than any ork they'd ever seen. It had found its host, and soon a new generation would raise a new army to spread its insidious will across the stars. War boss Rockwacka pushed his way to the front of his boys, pulling his big choppa out. He rushed the patriarch, only to be met with the Genestealer's claws ripping his head off his shoulders and tossing it. He assumed the title of War Boss Ed Rippa. The orks all gathered around to receive the blessing of the Genestealer's kiss, forever rewriting their DNA. After a few generations, the orks have been subjugated, as well as feral orks can be. Their usual feeling of unorkiness from seeing orks with four-arm mutations, spattered of hard carapaces, and sharp teeth were perceived as boons to the tribe. The process of making new generations sped up by fighting for higher ranks in the tribe that is normal amongst orks. And the spores, normal ability to shut out things such as the taint or of other sicknesses, overwhelmed by the need to make bigger and stronger orks, instilled in them by the Genestealer, War Boss Ed Rippa. As the orks fall and are born again, the DNA of the Genestealer spread to the new orks. Being born with four arms and bigger, bulkier bodies are looked up as stronger. Amongst the newer generations of orks, many boys started showing unique qualities, started standing out of the hordes of boys, displaying traits that seemed to be passed down in their genetics from all the way back to the days of the Brain Boys. The first, a small boy with a spark in his eyes. Even though he was small, when he dreamed enough for the whole tribe. The boys treated his dreams as prophecy, which in turn made his dreams reality. Amongst the tribe, They called him the Great Snoozer. Every time he would awake from his dreams, he would speak his dreams in a panic before the boys would put him back to sleep with a gentle crack on his head. The second, a mech boy, ever unfulfilled by making small machines and overfilled with ambition. He pushed himself more and more to create the biggest and biggest mechs. He grows in size every time he makes something bigger and scarier, till he could be considered a big mech, even though the tribe doesn't know what that is. On hunting excursions, the orcs start to gather the parts of the old ships and Imperial Titans, and he has the innate understanding of how they go together, or at least how they're going to go together. Converting the two Imperial Titans to the biggest Morkanauts and Gorkanauts anyone has ever seen, with the final straw that set him over the brink of being the first and best mech boy known to the tribe as Barlark. The third, a towering four-armed boy, was spawned bigger and meaner than any before him, named Gargoyle. The night trembled under the weight of the looming confrontation, shadows flickering from the fires that had been erected in the depths of the cave. The stench of blood and burnt flesh hung thick in the air as Gargoyle, clad in rusted armor, faced the sinister figure of the Genestealer patriarch disguised as their tribe leader, war boss Edbanga, its eyes gleaming with predatory intellect. You think strength will save you, brute? I am the future. The tribe is mine. Future? Ha! You're just a squig in a big hat. Gargoyle lunged forward, the ground trembling beneath his weight. With a roar, Gargoyle swung his axe, aiming for the creature's head. Gargoyle would not bow to tough, scrawny orc. He connected with a sickening crunch, sending the Genestealer staggering back. With a snarl, the patriarch regained its footing. You think you've won? But victory is an illusion. A lunge, claws extended, aiming for Gargoyle's heart. Gargoyle stood his ground, letting the claws sink into his chest. Raising his fist, he brought down a powerful backhand that sent the creature sprawling. Gargoyle is too tough for you! With a swift, graceful motion, the Genestealer lunged forward, its claws slicing through the air like a whisper. Your bravado is pathetic, but I will enjoy watching you bleed. It swiped at Gargoyle, who ducked just in time, feeling the rush of air as his claws passed a hair's breadth from his head. Ha! You missed me, you ugly git! Gargoyle taunted, adrenaline surging through him. Let's see if you can do better! He charged, the ground shaking beneath his feet. Fool! The patriarch hissed, sidestepping with unnatural ability. The spun around, his tail sweeping toward Gargoyle's legs. You're outmatched. Not today! Gargoyle roared, leaping over his tail, arcing his chopper aimed directly at the creature's neck. This ends now! Foolish, the patriarch screeched, parrying the blow with his hardened limbs, the sound like metal grinding against bone. You cannot win. Gargoyle grinned, sweat pouring down his brow. But I can make it hurt! He twisted, swinging again, this time connecting with a sickening crunch. The patriarch let out a sharp, pained screech, echoing off the cavern walls. Your strength is impressive, but it is not enough. It snarled, lunging forward, teeth bared. Draw me! Gargoyle shouted, defiance igniting his spirit. I'm just getting started! With renewed fury, he charged again, his heart pounding, the clash of their wills echoing through the darkness, each blow a step closer to victory or doom. He swung his axe forward, slicing the Genestealer's head off of its shoulders with a gory scritch. Silence fell in the cavern. Wow! Bellowed Gargoyle, standing over the fallen, a mix of triumph and exhaustion washing over him. Boss Gargoyle desired to travel into the sky and conquer it all. With his second-in-command mech boss Barlark, they commanded all the boys to scour the planet and bring all the metal they could gather and bring it here to be made into a vessel that can travel the stars. After a time and much work, the mech boss inspired a few boys to join the rank of the mechs, and they crafted a ship deemed capable of, as they said, shooting into the sky. Every orc burned to embark into the universe and conquer it. As they piled onto the ship, and close it up. Bollock slaps a helmet with tubes and cords coming out every which way onto the head of the great snoozer, looks him in the eyes, and knocks him out. Green lightning fills the tubes, and the ship buzzes to life. Gagwell grabs the controls, and they shoot off into space. This is a fan story about my orcs and how they came to be. I have a lot more models in the work with their own stories. Do you have a unique story about your army? I would love to hear your orky ideas and suggestions or stories in the comments below. And as always, let's scroll and create, you get.